They don't tell you this part. They don't tell you about the quiet moments when nobody is watching, when the lights are off, when the crowd is gone, when the applause fades and all that's left is you and your thoughts. They don't talk about the war that happens inside your head long before any victory ever shows up on the outside. Because champions aren't built in stadiums. They're built in silence. They're built in the moments where quitting feels reasonable, where giving up feels logical, where staying average feels comfortable. And most people lose right there. Not because they're weak, not because they're incapable, but because they never learned how to control the most dangerous place on earth, their own mind. You see, talent is common. Dreams are cheap. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. But mindset? Mindset is everything. Mindset is the difference between the person who watches greatness and the person who becomes it. And the champion's mindset is not positive thinking, it's not hype, it's not pretending everything is easy. It's the ability to stand in pain without running. It's the ability to stare fear in the face and move forward anyway. It's the discipline to do what hurts today so tomorrow doesn't own you. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone with less talent than you is outworking you. Someone with fewer opportunities than you is pushing harder than you. Someone with more pain than you is refusing to stop. And the reason that should bother you is not because you need to compare yourself, but because it proves one thing: excuses are optional. Limits are negotiable. And the only real difference between where you are and where you want to be is what you're willing to endure. The champion's mindset begins the moment you stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start asking, "What is this going to cost me?" Because everything great has a price. Sacrifice is not a punishment, it's a requirement. Sleep, comfort, social approval, instant pleasure, these are the currencies you will pay with. And most people aren't unwilling to win, they're unwilling to pay. They want the reward without the resistance. They want the results without the repetition. They want the crown without the weight of responsibility that comes with it. Champions think differently when they're tired. When normal people slow down, champions sharpen their focus. When others complain, champions calculate their next move. When pain shows up, champions don't ask how to escape it, they ask how to use it. Pain becomes information. Failure becomes feedback. Loss becomes fuel. And every setback becomes a lesson carved into their mindset. Understand this clearly: your mind will try to protect you, not empower you. It will whisper safe lies. It will tell you to rest when you should push. It will tell you tomorrow is fine when today is critical. It will tell you you've done enough when deep down you know you haven't. And the champion's mindset is the ability to recognize that voice and disobey it. Because growth is uncomfortable by design. Evolution hurts. Transformation demands pressure. And if your life feels hard right now, that might not be a sign you're failing, it might be proof that you're being forged. Steel isn't strong because it's comfortable. Diamonds aren't rare because they're lucky. Pressure creates value. Struggle creates strength. And the champion understands that running from hardship is running from greatness. Look at your past for a moment. Not to regret it, but to learn from it. Every time you quit, every time you hesitated, every time you chose comfort over courage, it left a mark. And that mark isn't shame, it's a reminder. A reminder of who you don't want to be again. Champions don't live in the past, but they don't forget it either. They use it. They turn pain into purpose and regret into resolve. The world will test you. Not once. Not twice. Over and over again. It will test your patience, your confidence, your identity. People will doubt you, misunderstand you, underestimate you. Some will laugh. Some will leave. Some will hope you fail because your success reminds them of their own excuses. And the champion's mindset understands this one brutal truth: approval is not required. Permission is not needed. Validation is optional. There will be days you feel unstoppable, and days you feel invisible. Days you feel strong, and days you question everything. And the difference between champions and everyone else is not emotion, it's commitment. Champions don't show up because they feel like it. They show up because they decided. Long before motivation disappears, discipline steps in. And discipline is the quiet force that carries you when passion goes silent. If you're waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Readiness is a myth. Confidence is built in action, not thought. Strength comes from repetition, not wishing. And the champion's mindset understands that the path reveals itself only after you start walking. Clarity follows courage. Momentum follows movement. You were not meant to live small. You were not meant to survive, you were meant to dominate your potential. But domination requires ownership. Ownership of your time. Ownership of your habits. Ownership of your failures. No blaming the past. No pointing fingers at circumstances. No waiting for the perfect moment. Champions take responsibility even when it's unfair, because power lives there. This is where it begins. Not tomorrow. Not when things calm down. Not when someone believes in you. It begins the moment you decide that your excuses have expired. That average is no longer acceptable. That the pain of discipline is finally cheaper than the pain of regret. And once that decision is made, once the mindset shifts, there is no turning back, only forward, only upward, only deeper into the version of yourself you were always capable of becoming. And this is only the beginning. There is a moment every champion faces that most people never talk about, because it's uncomfortable, because it sounds lonely, because it feels almost dangerous to admit. It's the moment when you realize that if you want to become extraordinary, you cannot live like everyone else. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not socially. There will be a gap between you and the world, and that gap will grow wider the more serious you become about your purpose. And if you're not prepared for that isolation, it will break you before pressure ever does. Champions spend a lot of time alone, not because they hate people, but because greatness demands focus. While others are distracted, entertained, numbed, and busy consuming noise, champions are building something invisible. They are sharpening skills nobody claps for yet. They are repeating boring fundamentals while others chase excitement. They are sacrificing weekends, comfort, and sometimes relationships, not out of arrogance, but out of commitment to something bigger than temporary pleasure. This is where obsession comes in. And let's be clear, obsession is not insanity, it's alignment. When your thoughts, actions, habits, and decisions all point in one direction, people will call you obsessed. Let them. Obsession is what happens when you finally see what you're capable of and refuse to let it die inside you. Obsession is waking up with your goal in your chest and going to sleep with it still burning. It's when quitting doesn't even feel like an option anymore, because you've mentally burned the exit doors. The champion's mindset understands that balance is seasonal. There are times in life when you must go all in. When moderation will not save you. When comfort will not grow you. When half effort will quietly destroy your future. And champions recognize those seasons. They don't apologize for being focused. They don't explain their hunger. They don't beg for understanding. They move in silence and let results do the talking. But here's the real battle, the one that destroys most people: self-talk. That voice in your head is either your greatest weapon or your deadliest enemy. It narrates your failures. It labels your pain. It decides whether a setback means I'm done or I'm learning. And champions train that voice relentlessly. They don't let it run wild. They don't allow it to spiral into weakness. When the mind says, "I can't," the champion responds, "Watch me." Because motivation will betray you. There will be days you feel empty. Days you feel tired beyond logic. Days when your body is present but your spirit feels drained. And on those days, the champion's mindset doesn't look for inspiration, it leans on identity. You don't act based on how you feel. You act based on who you decided to be. And identity is stronger than emotion. Understand this: every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build self-trust. And every time you break one, you weaken it. Champions protect their self-trust like their life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. When you know you can rely on yourself, pressure loses power. Fear gets quieter. Doubt doesn't disappear, but it stops controlling you. Champions also understand that losing is not the enemy. Comfort is. Failure hurts, but stagnation kills. A loss teaches you more than a win ever will if you're humble enough to listen. But comfort lies to you. It tells you that you're fine where you are. That you've done enough. That tomorrow will fix what discipline didn't handle today. And comfort is the most dangerous place a human being can live. There will be moments when your progress is invisible. Weeks where nothing seems to move. Months where effort feels wasted. And this is where most people quit, not because they failed, but because they couldn't see proof fast enough. Champions understand delayed gratification. They know that roots grow in darkness. They trust the process even when the results haven't arrived yet. They know that momentum is often building quietly beneath the surface. And yes, there will be moments when people question you. When they say you've changed. When they say you're too serious, too intense, too driven. What they really mean is that your discipline makes them uncomfortable. Your focus exposes their distractions. Your growth reminds them of the version of themselves they abandoned. Champions don't argue with that. They keep going. This path will demand emotional control. You cannot afford to react to everything. You cannot let criticism derail you or praise slow you down. Champions stay neutral. Calm in chaos. Focused under pressure. They don't let highs make them careless or lows make them desperate. Emotional discipline is mental strength in action. And here's a hard truth, nobody is coming to save you. No perfect mentor. No magical opportunity. No sudden breakthrough that erases the work. Champions accept this early. They stop waiting. They stop hoping. They start building. Brick by brick. Day by day. Rep by rep, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because pain is part of the process. Not a sign to stop, a signal to adapt. Pain reveals weakness, and weakness shows you exactly where to grow. Champions don't avoid pain. They study it. They respect it. They use it as a compass pointing toward their next level. This mindset changes how you see time. Wasted minutes become unacceptable. Procrastination feels painful. Laziness feels heavy. Not because you're obsessed with productivity, but because you respect your potential too much to betray it. Champions understand that time is not renewable, and every day you don't build is a day you silently fall behind who you could have been. This is the phase where you either harden or disappear. Where your standards rise and your excuses shrink. Where you stop negotiating with weakness and start enforcing discipline. Where the champion's mindset stops being something you admire and becomes something you live. And if you're still here, still listening, still feeling that pressure in your chest, good. That means it's working. That means the old version of you is being challenged. And what comes next is where most people break. There's a level of pain you must reach before you truly change. Not surface discomfort. Not mild inconvenience. Real pain. The kind that forces honesty. The kind that strips away ego and excuses and leaves you face to face with who you really are. Champions are not afraid of this moment. They understand that suffering is not a detour on the path, it is the path. Because suffering introduces you to yourself. When things are easy, anyone can feel confident. Anyone can feel disciplined. Anyone can believe in themselves. But when you are exhausted, when you are behind, when nothing is working, when doubt is loud and progress is silent, that's when your true mindset shows up. That's when you find out whether you are committed or just interested. Champions train when motivation is gone. They work when the body screams stop. They think clearly when emotions are chaotic. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've conditioned themselves to respond instead of react. Discipline becomes automatic. Pain becomes familiar. Resistance becomes expected. And once something becomes expected, it loses its power to control you. This is where standards are forged. Champions live by standards, not feelings. They don't ask, "What do I feel like doing today?" They ask, What does my standard require? And standards don't negotiate. Standards don't care if you're tired, bored, emotional, or uninspired. Standards are ruthless, and that's why they work. Understand this clearly: the gap between who you are and who you want to become is filled with habits. Daily habits. Unseen habits. Boring habits. And champions fall in love with repetition. They respect the grind because they understand that mastery is built in monotony. Doing the same thing correctly, over and over again, long after excitement disappears. Most people want intensity. Champions want consistency. Anyone can push hard for a day. Few can show up relentlessly for years. That's why greatness is rare. It's not hidden. It's not secret. It's just uncomfortable for too long for most people to tolerate. There will be moments when you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world alone. When nobody understands your pressure. When your sacrifices go unnoticed. When your effort feels invisible. And this is where mental toughness is born, not in applause, but in obscurity. Not in victory, but in endurance. Champions develop the ability to suffer silently. Not because they don't feel pain, but because they refuse to let pain define them. They don't need sympathy. They don't need validation. They need progress. And progress often feels lonely. Your environment will test you. Distractions will multiply. Temptations will appear exactly when discipline matters most. Old habits will try to pull you back. Old versions of yourself will whisper that you're doing too much, that you're changing too fast, that you should slow down. Champions recognize this as resistance, proof that growth is happening. And when setbacks hit, not if, but when, champions don't collapse. They don't panic. They don't self-destruct. They adjust. They analyze. They rebuild stronger. Failure does not damage their identity. It sharpens it. Because they never attached their worth to outcomes. They attached it to effort. This mindset changes how you see fear. Fear stops being a warning sign and starts becoming a signal. A signal that you're close to growth. A signal that you're stepping beyond familiarity. A signal that expansion is happening. Champions don't eliminate fear, they move with it. And here's something nobody tells you: confidence is not loud. It's quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg for recognition. Champion confidence is calm under pressure. It's steady under stress. It's the ability to say, "I've been here before," even when you haven't, because you've trained your mind to trust your preparation. Preparation is the real secret. When you've done the work, fear weakens. When you've paid the price, doubt fades. When you've sacrificed consistently, hesitation loses its grip. Champions prepare so deeply that pressure feels familiar. This is where discipline becomes identity. You don't try to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You don't hope to be strong, you act strong. You don't wait for courage, you move without permission. And once you reach this point, something shifts. You stop chasing motivation. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop hoping life gets easier. You accept that the weight never gets lighter, you just get stronger. This is the moment champions are born. Not when they win. Not when they're recognized. But when they realize they can endure more than they ever imagined. When they realize quitting no longer feels natural. When they realize pain is temporary, but regret is permanent. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing heavier than when this started, that's not coincidence. That's the old limits cracking. And what comes next is dominance. At some point, the champion stops trying to prove anything. The noise fades. The comparisons disappear. The need for recognition dissolves. And what replaces it is something dangerous: certainty. Not arrogance. Not ego. Certainty. The quiet, unshakable belief that no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, the outcome is inevitable. Champions don't rush destiny. They walk toward it with control. This is the phase where dominance is built, not through force, but through consistency so sharp it becomes intimidating. When you show up every day, when your effort doesn't fluctuate with mood, when your discipline doesn't crack under pressure, people start to feel it. They may not understand it, but they sense it. Your presence changes. Your energy shifts. You no longer need to announce who you are, your standards speak for you. Dominance begins with self-control. Emotional control. Mental control. Time control. Champions do not let impulses dictate direction. They pause where others panic. They think where others react. They choose long-term power over short-term relief. This is why they seem calm when everything is burning. They've trained for chaos. You start to realize that distractions are not random. They show up when momentum is building. Comfort knocks when discipline is working. Temptation appears when progress is close. And champions don't get angry at this, they get sharper. They understand that resistance is confirmation. This mindset reshapes your identity. You stop saying, "I'm trying." Trying is optional. You start saying, "This is who I am." Identity is permanent. And once discipline becomes identity, relapse becomes rare. You don't negotiate with weakness because weakness no longer fits who you are. Champions operate with patience that looks like confidence. They don't chase quick wins. They don't force outcomes. They trust the compounding effect of effort. One day stacks onto another. One rep builds into mastery. One disciplined decision compounds into an unrecognizable future. And while others get bored, champions get dangerous. There is a point where your work ethic becomes heavier than your fear. Where your preparation outweighs your doubt. Where your pain tolerance exceeds your excuses. And when you reach that point, pressure flips. It no longer crushes you, it sharpens you. Champions also learn when to say no. No to distractions. No to draining conversations. No to environments that weaken focus. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not every opportunity deserves your time. Focus is power, and champions guard it aggressively. This is where leadership is born, even if no one is watching yet. You lead yourself first. You hold yourself accountable. You demand excellence from yourself before expecting it from others. And eventually, people notice. Not because you ask them to, but because consistency is loud. Your failures stop embarrassing you. Your past stops haunting you. Your scars stop hurting you. They become proof. Proof that you survived. Proof that you adapted. Proof that you didn't quit. Champions don't hide their scars, they wear them as reminders of resilience. You begin to understand legacy. Not fame. Not applause. Legacy is who you become when nobody is forcing you to be great. It's the standard you live by when no one is keeping score. It's the discipline you practice when quitting would be easy and unnoticed. And here's the truth, dominance is lonely. Few will understand your pace. Fewer will match your hunger. And almost none will tolerate your standards. But champions accept this early. They'd rather be misunderstood in discipline than accepted in average. At this level, excuses sound weak. Complaints feel heavy. Procrastination feels painful. Because once you've tasted control, going back to chaos feels unbearable. Once you've seen your potential clearly, betraying it feels like self-destruction. This is when you stop chasing success and start expecting it. Not with entitlement, with preparation. With patience. With relentless execution. You know setbacks will come, but you also know they won't stop you. Because you've already survived worse. You are no longer motivated. You are no longer inspired. You are conditioned. And conditioning beats emotion every single time. And what comes next is not about winning anymore. It's about becoming undeniable.